Here we go in three. Oh, actually, we're live right now. All right, everyone. Welcome to the Real Results Show. Yet another episode. We are live every Wednesday at 12 p.m. PST, 3 p.m. EST. And what we're doing here is interviewing real practitioners who have real results for themselves and their clients. Now, this is a very interesting guest today. And the reason I think she's super interesting is because we've done an FDN Thrive podcast episode together. You can always check that out by searching FDN Thrive on any major podcast platform. It's somewhat similar to this, but we go much more in depth with people's stories. And Leslie Parran is our guest today. And if I'm not mistaken, Leslie, you have over 40 years of nursing experience, correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Evan. Over the last 40 years as a registered nurse, I've actually helped people with chronic pain, most of them with cancer and other very chronic diseases. And I really have been excited to transition in this phase of my life to really helping people even avoid getting to the hospital in the first place. So I'm excited to be on the show today.
Awesome. And I said this to you on the podcast, and I'll say it again. Your type of people are some of my favorite to talk to because you have this background in Western medicine and now you're learning about functional. And I know that you've been doing that historically anyway, but it's a beautiful combination because it doesn't create a bias one way or the other. And we don't become dogmatic then, right? We are always promoting that we just want Western medicine used at the right times. And likewise, we want functional healthcare used at the right time. So for someone to combine both, I think that's just a wonderful thing to be able to offer people. And I'm happy to dig into some of your knowledge today. So I always start with a similar question, just as a quick background. When did you find the FDN course and when did you graduate?
Well, I actually graduated this past June, and it was perfect timing for me. It was June in 2020, and so it was perfect timing because I was going towards retirement from my nursing career, and I had been studying functional medicine over the past few years, and then this really was the program that I decided I really thought was best because it really it helped me sort of mitigate between the world that I was used to as a registered nurse using lab testing and as a coach be able to employ the functional medicine lab tests that are not necessarily available to traditional providers. And so I was just so excited to be able to learn the labs through FDN and be able to utilize these tests to help clients.
Sure. And how did you get into the natural side of things to begin with? Because this rule goes both ways. If someone grew up in a family with a ton of natural medicine being promoted, oh, well, we're kind of anti-Western. And opposite can happen as well, especially if you're in that field. So what is it that made you want to bridge that gap and start branching out into the natural side of things to add that to your education?
Yeah, well, here's a little bit about my story. At one point, I had promised my grandson I was going to play hockey with him, and I was sitting down in a chair, and he came up to me, and I went to get out of the chair, and all of a sudden, I felt incredible pain, and my feet locked up on me, and I really literally could not move, and I was like, what the heck is going on? And then whenever I least expected it from there on in, every time I was getting out of the car or something, or out of a chair, there it was again. And I couldn't even fulfill my promise to my grandson to play hockey. And I felt like my body was really starting to betray me, and I couldn't trust it to work the way it was supposed to. And it was like I was driving a car with the brakes locking up and the wheels just waiting to fall off. And so I went back to the doctor and tried to get the pain fixed, and all they had for me was medication or surgery. And one even said, "You're just even getting old." And I thought, well, wait a minute, that's not me. I'm supposed to be able to play with my grandkids, and now it's my time to do the things that I really want to do and live the active life that I want to. And I was starting to rapidly lose hope in the medical system and of finding a solution, and I felt like I was destined to fall or not be able to play with my grandkids, and I'd be there just sitting watching them. And so as a nurse for 40 years, I'd been taking care of many patients with chronic pain, and I was worried because many of them had become dependent on pain medication. And I always wondered, how could I help people like that get there in the first place? And I did not want to end up in that way. And so even though my feet weren't working for me and I had my brain to rely on, I thought I can find the solution myself. And that's where I saw the opportunity as a nurse to become more involved in holistic medicine, integrative medicine, and functional medicine, and decided to act and to learn more and take charge of my own health.
This is so cool. And I love people that walk their walk, because there's two things, like a 40-year plus career and grandkids. You do not look like someone that meets either of those things, or would be able to meet either of those things. So that's what's cool about people in our space, because we really are out here doing it. And I have so much respect for anyone that could be in one field or the other, whether it's natural, functional, whatever you want to call it, or Western, and then have the ability to see the benefits of other. Again, I think that just makes for a great practitioner. Now, the topic of the day is kind of how food sensitivities can cause inflammation and pain. And that is definitely, from my understanding, I mean, I'm not a doctor or nurse, but I've worked with some doctors, and I don't think food sensitivities have ever come up. Food allergies, sure, but definitely not food sensitivity. So maybe we can start with just a basic short thing. What is the difference between a food allergy and a sensitivity? Because that's something I think many people do not understand.
Well, Evan, there's not only just food allergies, but there's food sensitivities and food intolerances.
Mhm.
And they're all very different. And unfortunately, in traditional medicine, even allergists, they're looking at what's called an IgE reaction, or an immunoglobulin or an antibody reaction that's only caused by an allergy to certain foods. And really, I think there's only around 5 to 6% of people that have true food allergies. About 30 to 40% of people actually experience what are called food sensitivities. And food sensitivities can be delayed, whereas, we all know allergy, like a peanut allergy, a true allergy that provokes an immune response called the IgE response, that true allergy will cause an immediate reaction.
And it's usually scary, right? Like, I mean, that's pretty obvious to everyone around them.
Oh, it can be, especially, peanuts or certain things like that. We all
Sure.
hear of that, no peanuts on the airplane kind of thing. But with food sensitivities, a lot of times we're so disconnected from our bodies that we don't realize that we're reacting to a food. And in fact, with food sensitivities, it can be hours or even a few days before the food sensitivity immune response, and this is caused by another antibody, whether it's IgA or IgM or IgG. It's mostly those type of reactions that are happening. And so they're different than an allergy, and they're often delayed. And so we aren't necessarily connected, our brains and our gut, with what's happening. And so that's where food sensitivity testing is really so critical. And one of the tools in the FDN toolbox, it's not the only test usually you would do with a client. It's one of the tests, and it provides some very valuable information to clients. And the most common test that we use is called the MRT food sensitivity test, which tests for over 170 foods and other chemicals to help identify where someone might need to know that they have they're sensitive to a food or something that they should take out of their diet.
Awesome explanation. And yeah, the MRT has been a blessing in the FDN Thrive program and in my own personal stuff, even in my own healing journey. It just found things that were not ever discovered. And I am the perfect example of this. I got a food allergy test around 15 or 16 years old because of what I now know were panic attacks I was experiencing. Nothing came up. Zip. And of course, when I get into that food sensitivity thing, looking at 170 different items, I mean, I know that you said there's a percentage of people, but I feel like most people show up somewhat sensitive to something on the MRT. Now, of course, we also work with a sicker portion of the population. And for those just tuning in, we're talking today about how food sensitivities can cause inflammation and pain. And you can drop the word pain below, and we're always giving away free stuff on these things. The Real Results Show, that is. And today, what we're going to be talking about, what we're giving away for free, is learning more about FDN Thrive. We're going to hook you up with our survey. So FDN Thrive is our program for the person that maybe doesn't really want to become a practitioner, but they definitely want the healing experience of working with an FDN. So it's a wonderful program. Leslie's a part of that in addition to owning her own business. So very, very cool stuff. All right. So getting back to this topic and how pain can actually be caused by food sensitivities, I know that this is maybe a little basic for people in the space, but there's plenty of people that don't understand it. How is it that a food sensitivity can cause inflammation and pain? Why does that mean I'm having pain? Like, shouldn't that just mean my stomach gets upset or something? I think a lot of people might not get why that connects.
Yeah, and you're right. This is not something that's very intuitive for most people. Most people would assume if you're sensitive to something that gets into your gut, that it would cause gut-related symptoms. And in fact, many times it can. But oftentimes, like in my case, I had arthritis that was actually connected to that type of reactions to many foods. You mentioned earlier that it's often not just one. In fact, here's my little card that shows my sensitivities.
Yeah.
But things that I never expected or suspected that I was sensitive to, that's where this test comes in and provides very valuable information. And it helped me learn that because where my weakest link was in my body, it was that this sensitivity to this food was causing an immune reaction that was actually setting up house in my joints and causing bone pain. For others, it might be migraines. It could be, and in fact, in very extreme cases, there are case reports of people with sensitivities to corn or wheat that actually have neurologic issues, even issues such as schizophrenia. There are case reports where if that corn has been removed from someone who has a sensitivity to corn, that person's symptoms can totally clear. So I think people really underestimate the value of food sensitivity, because once we correct our diet and take out those foods we are sensitive to, we can often correct a number of underlying symptoms. And I tend to focus on pain because a lot of these can cause gut pain or other types of things. It's just sort of my niche area. But it can cause a variety of different reactions, and depends on the individual. And that's why the testing is so important, because it points out those foods that individual is sensitive to.
I love that you brought up corn and wheat. Those were two things that I came up hot for. The wheat was actually in the yellow. The MRT, for those that don't know, it does it by color, kind of. Topic for a different day. But corn was one of my highest reds. I mean, it was well beyond that. And although I had cut out wheat, I had not cut out corn. And of course, you and I know about like potential cross reactivity there. And I was like, oh my goodness, what a mess this was. So I removed both of those things. And my mom and I had very similar panels on the MRT. And we actually found the most noticeable benefit coming from that removal of corn and not even wheat. So who knows what that is? But again, none of this showed up on a food allergy test. So
can I just interject too? I want to bring up that most people don't realize it's not just removing them from your diet. For example, I was taking medication. I had also thyroid disease related to a wheat sensitivity, and not an allergy, but a sensitivity. And my medication I was taking actually had substances in it that were I was reacting to. Often don't know that our own medications contain either wheat, soy, or cornstarch or something that could actually trigger allergy. And the same, especially for women who are used to cosmetics, etc. A lot of these products contain things where if we have a sensitivity to it, we need to make sure we also eliminate those things and find alternatives.
Yeah, excellent point, because this was years ago, and I was at a phase where, I'd still get headaches pretty often. So I was like, okay, well, I'm getting better. It's okay to take the Advil, and any generic brand even of anything with ibuprofen is going to have cornstarch in it. And it's like, go figure, so I'm taking away inflammation in a very bad way and in a risky way. And I'm adding it because I wasn't checking everything. I'm so diligent now, and it can be overwhelming for people to try to find all these things. But this is why we promote eating whole foods and eating healthy, because you generally avoid a lot of this stuff anyway. And then you really only got to check the medications. So when you were applying this to your own healing journey, and I know that you graduated in June, so almost a year, that's pretty cool. I know that you had kind of already touched on this lightly, that this did work for you, but what were the results? Were you able to eliminate the pain that you were dealing with when you were talking about your grandchild, or how did that work for you?
Well, it really wasn't easy. And I don't think any of us as coaches promise it will be easy, especially for those people that have multiple food sensitivities. It took a lot of dedication, but I really knew that I had arrived when I could get going and play with my grandson without having that immobilizing type of pain. Sure, I might be sore or something when I do something like that, but I have a lot more confidence in my body, and I don't need medication and to manage my pain. And that's exactly where I wanted to be. I wanted to, be able to not experience the pain and to be able to play with my grandkids. And I'm so grateful for that, to be able to have the active life and not relying on medication. And while my story is not necessarily unique about my pain, while it might be, like I said, foot pain for me, and that was the wake-up call for me, or some other people may be diagnosed with diseases. Even it's important that we don't accept that our symptoms, that we have to live with our symptoms, that we can do something about it. And our health impacts not just only us, but those we love. And one of my favorite quotes from Eleanor Roosevelt is, it's not enough to talk about peace. One must believe in it, and one must work at it. And I truly believe that you can solve your symptoms and your pain and move your body from pain to peace with the right pieces of health information. And in this case, those tests that we provide through FDN, as well as the coaching support, and that can really help people live those active lives that they've dreamed of. And it's been very helpful for me, and that's why I'm a firm believer in this and what I really want to provide for my clients.
This is so cool. So I just love anything where there is a story of someone dealing with something and then the natural stuff, it works, and it does take work. It does take dedication. So I love that no FDN sugarcoats that, but it's worth it, right? Because you might not be in physical pain. It might be emotional or mental. It's worth it. There comes a certain time where I love living the lifestyle that I'm living now, even though it's disciplined. Some would call it that, right? Because I don't deal with a lot of the symptoms that I used to deal with. So it's all a pros outweigh the con type of thing. And real quick, if you guys are just tuning in, we're talking all about how food sensitivities can actually cause inflammation and pain. But there's many things that can cause pain, of course. And so if you drop the word pain in the comments, we're always giving away free stuff every single week on the Real Results Show. And we're sending out our FDN Thrive survey. So what that does is it'll actually allow you to find some hidden healing opportunities in your own body. And you can also learn more about the FDN Thrive program. All right. Now, Leslie, back to you. I know that since you graduated in June and you're kind of transitioning career-wise, do you have any client successes yet? Or is there anything that sticks out? Or are those still things that are being worked on as you grow the business?
Well, I think both. I think it's very exciting through working with clients through FDN Thrive, having a client there now, finding opportunities with food sensitivity testing, and personally and with family members, et cetera. And so I am really working on developing my clients as I move forward, because like I said, it's really, I think this program provides so much value to people out there. And again, people don't realize that they have to live with their symptoms. They think, oh, I've always, reacted to this, or I don't know what I react to, but I've always had to live with this pain or that pain. I think people, and I think it's time that people are starting to realize they don't have to rely on just traditional medicine. They can take charge of their own health. And FDN provides such an opportunity to people to do that. And the testing provides so much value to help people long-term with their life. I'm not about helping people just manage their pain. I'm helping people find what is the root cause of their pain so that they don't have to live with it or have it experience it again.
That's awesome. And then again, I'll keep saying it. I love that you can bring both perspectives. I think your stuff's just going to take off over the next couple of years because more and more people are seeking out individuals like you that have that objective nature. And just to go to the comments real quick, we had someone say, glad to hear more about this connection. Awesome. We're glad to share it. And Allison said, so interesting, Leslie. So Leslie, I'm glad people are enjoying this, obviously. Now, just as a little bonus here for the last few minutes, and then we'll shout out your business and where people can find you. What are some other things that when because you have this tremendous background, and in addition to FDN, I mean, you have multiple other certifications and areas of expertise. So what are some other maybe big things that you see are causing chronic pain that, like, it's not a physical thing, right? It's not an injury. It's not something that they need to go to a physical therapist. It's just like, I got this chronic thing. I don't know what's going on. Outside of food sensitivities, what's another common thing you're seeing that's causing these problems?
Well, I mean, certainly people can have sensitivity to their medications, et cetera. In my case, because I have a history of wheat sensitivity, I actually have experience with testing family members and myself for wheat sensitivity, and I am a certified gluten-free practitioner in addition. And so I think helps me with people who may have celiac disease and or some kind of spectrum of wheat-related disorders. And so those are some of the clients that I'm really also interested in working with.
Great. And I guess this is a good question for this, because certainly, although, yes, we test for 170 foods, we can do that with the MRT and it's wonderful. There are pretty common things that I see come up a lot, and I'm sure you do as well. So let's say someone's out there, because we always want to provide as much value as possible for free. Food sensitivity tests, they cost money, no doubt about it. I think they're worth it. I'm sure you think they're worth it. But let's say someone's been, really banged up by this stuff and they don't have the money to spend on that, but they have the discipline and they're willing to give a few things a try. Now, even though this is certainly not as guaranteed or helpful as a food sensitivity test, you already mentioned a couple times, like, are there like 2 or 3 foods that you think it'd be really worth it for people to consider experimenting removing if they don't have any objective data for it yet?
Yeah, no, very good question. I mean, obviously, it's great if we can, in the first line testing would be the MRT testing. But for those people who are working just on without the labs, the first thing they can do is cut out not just wheat, but dairy, soy, corn, and I'm forgetting the well, alcohol would be another thing, because alcohol can really disrupt the gut. So those are probably the top 5, I would say, that people could do an elimination diet of those things first. And if they start to feel a lot better, and normally with food sensitivities, if you're eliminating them, we would suspect that somebody would start to feel better within a 5 to 10 day period. So if you eliminate those things and you're feeling like 100% better or a lot better, you would presume that you had a sensitivity to one of those things. And, again, back to the whole thing, people might not be able to handle it all at once. Maybe they try cutting out gluten first, right? And see if they feel better. Then they try corn or something like that. Because not everyone can be successful in eliminating all of those at once.
Excellent. And yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to go after those foods. It is certainly more annoying to do it that way than just run the test. But again, I get it. And I never want to take anything away from people who are dedicated and maybe just don't have the money at this time. But sometimes strange things, strange as in not common things, come up. I had someone recently super, super high in the red for chicken. And this was a person that used to do bodybuilding. They ate chicken and rice every single day, and it was still a staple in their diet long after they had ever done the bodybuilding type of stuff. And sure enough, they remove it. And what do you know? 3 days later, the bloating's down. They're feeling so much better. And we know that it can actually take several more days for something like even chicken to kind of have that immune response chill out fully. And so I just thought that was amazing, because she would have never gotten to that on an elimination diet. Let's be honest. I mean, it was really someone that relied on that food that much. She needed the test to be able to see, yeah, this is something I want to remove. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, chicken isn't one of the things that we would recommend first line anyway. And that's, like you said, that's where the value comes in the testing to help people really identify those things. And like you said, it could be a miracle for people. If you identify those foods, their life can change just like that, and in a positive way. And people don't realize that. I mean, that's why it's important to get that word out there, right, about how valuable food sensitivity can be for correcting and really, in fact, my thing is about how to help people feel better, move better, and live better. Right. Someone's life can be miraculously better if they identify their food sensitivities and correct those.
Absolutely. And it's so cool that this is just one piece of the many pieces that we
Mhm.
offer of the puzzle with FDN as a whole. So we do have to
For
wrap
sure.
up. I want to shout out Rennie real quick, but she said, great interview, Leslie. Thank you for sharing your story. Being there for our family is one of the greatest. And thank you, Health Coach Ev, for presenting such valuable information. Thank you for using my proper name, Rennie. I appreciate that. Leslie, if someone's like, all right, this woman's awesome, this is the person for me, I need someone that has both backgrounds, where can they find you and get in contact?
Yes, well, my website is www.peace, wellnesscoaching.com. And you can also find me on Facebook. I'm at Peace Wellness Coaching. And I'm also on a number of other social media platforms.
Very cool. And of course, we actually have Leslie's full longer interview where we went into a lot more than just food sensitivity stuff. So just search for her name on and then type in FDN Thrive and it will come up right on Google. You can get it checked out there. Finally, if you're just tuning in or you watch this a little later and you're like, can I still do this? Absolutely. Drop the word pain in the comments and we'll get you hooked up with an FDN Thrive survey, which will help identify hidden things that maybe are contributing to your pain if you're dealing with it chronically and nothing else has made sense. So I just want to thank you all for tuning in to another episode of The Real Results Show. We're live every Wednesday at 12 p.m. PST, 3 p.m. EST. You've been talking to Evan Transu, aka Health Coach Ev, your host, and Leslie Parran, and we've been talking all about how food sensitivities can cause inflammation and pain. Thanks so much, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you. Nice to see you.